use green soap. Green soap and...
I got a bar of green soap, you mean like Irish Spring?
No. Green soap is like, what do you call it? It's called green soap,
No.
but it's green, what's it, green?
They got that simple green.
Simple green, there you go, I couldn't think of simple green, I bought a gallon of it yesterday.
Yeah.
And then you mix a little tea tree oil with that, and it knocks it out, it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have plenty of tea tree, don't worry about that.
Let's sing a song. 5:37. Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
It's such a beautiful day today. I mean, the sun's shining, bright outside, warmer than it was a few days ago. Yeah, we got in the negatives.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday morning. It was like, I heard it was, somebody said it was -6.
We heard Sterling was -8, so we had just 2 here when I saw it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then last Sunday, it's almost 80 degrees. How can it go from one?
That's Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah. We get that actually, it's happened quite a few times since I've been here. It's pretty amazing. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful Sabbath. We thank you that we have the privilege of worshiping you, Lord, and the beauty of your holiness. I just pray, Lord, as we worship you today, Lord, and we spend time in your word, get to know you more, Lord, and your spirit, your presence would just commune with us and be with us in a very real and special way, Lord. Lord, I pray that you'll speak through me, your message that you have for us. Thank you so much. Bless all those that are tuning in here with us, we pray in Jesus' name. A man was being chased by a tiger. He ran as hard as he could, and he came to an edge of a cliff. And as he got to the edge of the cliff, he noticed that there was a little branch down there that he could hang from. And so he jumped down there and was hanging from the branch. Well, what ended up happening was a little mouse came out from the side of the cliff and started chewing on this branch. So he had to make a decision pretty quick. Okay, what am I going to do? The tiger's up there. The mouse is here chewing on this branch. It's only a matter of time, and it's 1,000 feet down to the end. You know, certain death if you fall down there for sure. So he's wondering, what is he going to do? And so he asks. He looks up and down and looks up and says, "Dear God, if you're there, please help. I will do anything. Just please help." And suddenly, I don't think he expected that there would be a voice that would come, but suddenly there was a voice that came booming from heaven. "You will do anything I ask?" he explained. The man, shocked to hear a reply to his plea, yelled back, "I will gladly do anything you ask, but please help me." The voice from heaven replied, "There is one way to save you, but it will take courage and it will take faith." The branch began to weaken from the mouse, and the tiger was still growling a few feet above. "Please, Lord, tell me what I can do. I will do it. Your will is my will." The voice from heaven then said, "All right, let's go, then let go of the branch." The man looked down to a fall of 1,000 feet and certain death, and he looked up to a hungry tiger a few feet away, and he looked at the mouse still chewing on the branch. Then he looked up to the heavens and yelled, "Is there anyone else up there?" Well, this story illustrates the point that it's our relationship with God, and it takes faith and trust. And you know, as we've been studying the Beatitudes, remember, I know it's been a little while, and I'm going to review them a little bit, but I'm actually going to part 3 because some others are already finished with part 2. But what are the Beatitudes? Matthew 5. You remember the last time we looked at the first one is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." This is the famous sermon that Jesus had on the Mount. The first words that he speaks there are not what people are expecting to hear. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," which we learned last time that is really realizing our need of God. We realize who we are, that we are sinners, we're fallen, we need God. And it's that very need that drives us to God. And then, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." When we realize that we're sinners and we're fallen, it causes us to see a glimpse of sin. You know, when we come in contact with God, remember what Isaiah said when he, all of a sudden, he experienced the presence of God there. Woe is me, a man of unclean lips. And that's what happens when we come in contact with God. The mourning here isn't mourning, it's mourning because of sin. It's mourning because we see, wow, sin and how it causes hurt with God and it causes separation between us and God. But the promise is that God will comfort us and He will be there with us. So we get a glimpse of what sin is. And then it says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. There's something, before I get into that one, I noticed something. There's a pattern in this text. You know, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, which is more of something, it's not an outward thing necessarily. It's more of an inward realization of our need of God. And mourning is a very outward thing. Then we come to meekness, which is more of an inward thing. You know, humility and gentleness is kind of it's the idea of meekness. And I think here it's focusing on especially humility, which is not necessarily something, I mean, it can be manifested outwardly, but it's more of what's happening in the heart. And then you have, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. You know, that's more of an active thing. I mean, if you're hungry and thirsting for something, you will eat and you will drink, right? And then it says, blessed are the merciful. That's an outward application. Blessed are the pure in heart. That's more of an inward thing. Blessed are the peacemakers, an outward thing. Blessed are those who are persecuted, which is something that happens, outward. So I just thought it interesting. It kind of almost, in some ways, goes back and forth there a little bit. But, so what is it? What blessed are the meek? That was the next one. Blessed are the meek. What is it mean about blessed are the meek? Well, meekness is, humility is involved in it, and gentleness. And as we come closer to God, there's something that happens to us when you have a realization. Wow, look at me. I have all these sins, and I'm struggling, and I'm not perfect. It has a way of humbling us and helping us to realize, wow, and it also causes us to give more grace to others, because we realize, wow, if I'm like this, then I need to share. I need to be graceful with others too. So that's the idea of meekness, is that humility, that we get. And it's that very thing that actually drives us even more to God. Because remember that these are the steps in drawing closer to Jesus, or you could say, and I called it the ways to true happiness. This is part 3. And it's online on YouTube if you want to watch part 2. And then, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. Well, we could almost sum up righteousness as Jesus too, because Jesus, it's His righteousness that we get, and He covers us with His righteousness as we draw near to Him. It's interesting, as the more you draw closer to Jesus, the more you fall in love with Him, the more you hunger and thirst for Him. It's like, man, I can't get enough of you, Lord. And there's a promise there. It says, you will be filled. But still, we always, the more we're with Jesus, the more we want Him, the more we hunger and thirst for Him. And we were created to be addicted to God. There's a lot of things we can get addicted to, but the thing we're actually created to be addicted to is God, And so the more we hunger and thirst, we just can't get enough of Him, We want Him all the time. And we hunger for the Word, getting to know Him, because that's where we get to know Him, is in the Word. God promises that He will fill us, and He's not going to leave us hungry and thirsty. Oh, Lord, He's going to fill that, more and more with Himself. So it's beautiful. And then we come to blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. This is also a very, the closer we come to God, it affects the way we treat others. And the way we show compassion. Because another word you could use for mercy is compassion. Compassion and mercy are kind of synonymous. The more we come in contact with God, the more we see others as God sees them. And, how does God see others? A lot different, I think, than probably human beings do, But when we come in contact and we're with Jesus, the more we're with Him, the more we see others how He sees them. God sees them, as people, and no matter what their problems or their challenges are or their struggles are, He sees them as people and He loves them, and He has a purpose and plan for them. And I've come to realize that more and more, that every person is valuable in God's sight. We, as human beings, it's easy for us to look at somebody and make judgments upon them, or think, man, they're like that, but it's not the way God sees them. And sometimes God has to remind me too, but it is, it's, every single person, whatever they've been through, whatever they're going through, whatever they're experiencing, whatever sins they've done, God loves them. And that love will never change. And so God helps us to see them that way. So that brings us to, and then if we're shown mercy, or we show mercy, we will be shown mercy. That's kind of the rule, right? If we show mercy, it's going to come back to us. This brings us today. This is actually the heart of it. The sermon today. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. What does it mean to be pure in heart? That sounds a pretty lofty goal. Jeremiah tells us that the heart is deceitful above all things. Who can know it? We can't trust the heart. What does it mean, that pure heart here?
Seeking the best out of everything that happens, regardless of your situation, I guess is what I would say. Pure heart. Because there's so much trouble out there, easy to get bogged down in politics or whatever, I've got a situation at work that's something that I've experienced sometime in the past, but never to the extreme that I have. The language that the fellows I work with is so vulgar. I mean, like I said, I've been around guys that swore, but not like this. And it's tough to. I guess the best thing I can do is keep my mouth shut, and stay as far away from it as I possibly can, and not ignore when they need some help, and help them when that is, and kind of slip away and not let what they say bother me. I guess that's kind of a tough thing to do. I mean, I've had that happen before, but to think the best of what the outcome could be, I guess, is the best.
Well, this very statement that Jesus says, "Blessed are the pure in heart," hit at the very struggle of a lot of the Jewish people. Especially the really religious leaders, the Pharisees. I mean, they were so meticulous. Jesus even called them whitewashed sepulchres, which is kind of almost humorous a little bit, but it's not to them, I'm sure. But to us, as we read it, their whole goal was to wash and make the outside of their lives look really good. But inside, they weren't good at all. It was that, and that was part of what Jesus is talking about here. He says in Matthew, it's not what goes into a man's body that defiles the person. He's talking about all these ceremonial and all these rules and things that they had done but it's what comes out. In other words, it's inside what makes a man pure or not. It really boils down to, you could sum it up in one thing: motives. What is the motives of a person's heart? And obviously, as we're more connected with Jesus, our motives become more and more pure. It doesn't mean that we never sin. It doesn't mean that we never mess up. But Jesus is our best friend, and He is, and we have, we're submitted to Him. It's our supreme goal to follow Him, but because of our human nature, sometimes we still, mess up. I know I find myself messing up. That's what He means by pure in heart, having the right motives. And obviously, the Pharisees, they didn't, we can't say all, we tend to group them all, but we know later on, it says in Acts that there was a great number of the priests that actually followed Jesus, and so there were some, and we know even Nicodemus, was one of those, and he was even kind of secretly, following God until after Jesus was risen or died. Him and Joseph, took Jesus' body and laid it in the tomb. So there were some, but many of them, and that was what Jesus, that was His constant struggle, was against that. Even His own disciples, I think, early on had that same struggle. They were following Him probably for the wrong reasons. But this is really, as we grow closer to God, the more it just happens. We don't have to think, I need to be pure in heart. It just, we more and more surrender to Jesus as we give our lives to Him and we spend time with Him. And it's a beautiful thing. A rabbi and a soap maker who went for a walk together. The soap maker had some negative things to say about religion. What good is religion? Just look around you. What do you see? Trouble, misery, wars. Even after all these years and years of preaching and teaching about goodness, truth, and peace. What good is religion with all its prayers and sermons if all this evil still exists? The rabbi kept quiet as they continued their walk. And they noticed a child praying in the gutter. The child was just filthy with dirt and mud. The rabbi said to the soap maker, "Look at this child. Now you say that soap makes people clean. But what good is it? With all the soap in the world, this child is still dirty. What good is soap after all?" The soap maker immediately answered him, "Rabbi, soap can't do its job if it isn't used." "That's exactly right," said the rabbi, "and so it is with religion. It will not accomplish anything unless we use it." And that's very true. Unless we spend time with Jesus and get to know Him every day, then, it won't have any impact at all on us. And we're going to go to the next one now. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Blessed are the peacemakers. This is another practical one here, that we live in a world where there's so much strife and unrest and, opposite of peace, even in our government. A lot of things are always happening, and it comes to the point where you don't even know who to believe anymore. It's a lot of, and Jesus is saying, blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers. What does He mean by that? How do we make peace? Because that's a very active thing that we do. How can we make peace? There can be, certainly, it's probably not hard to make strife, right? But to make peace is a whole other thing.
Well, there are people that can negotiate in a way that that can draw the best out of one side or the other and introduce that same idea in the other side, and they can share in that commonality of what they enjoy together, and by that, they can start a path. You can't enforce peace. You have to be led to it, basically. My mom and both my dad too were peacemakers in their family. Mom had one person she couldn't find peace with, though, and that was her sister-in-law. But anyway, peace came when the sister-in-law had to submit that she was wrong, and ended up making peace with my mom after 30 years or more, almost 40 years of being in trouble. But still, my mom and her own family, when some of the family members would come to my mom, and through my mom would make peace with the other family members, that you know, sometimes it's as simple as a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's a hurt it's you know, it's deep-seated, and sometimes you just have to somehow resolve it to a certain level. And like I said, you have to come to a common ground on something, and both my parents were that way. They were both peacemakers. So you have to copy somebody else when you don't have the strength on your own in being a peacemaker. That's all I know.
Yeah. So, in order to give peace, we have to experience it ourselves, right? And sometimes it may be, wow, where can there be peace? Although we live in a peaceful area here. That's what I like about the plains. It's not so chaotic. And go to the city and there's so much moving all around all at once, yeah. And go here quick and there quick. And so, yeah, it is very peaceful. But even more than that, we have to experience the peace of Jesus, you know. It says in Romans 5:1, it says, therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's a wonderful thing to have peace with God, you know, knowing that there's nothing between, as far as I know, between me and God. And, you know, if we don't want to let anything come between us and God. And that, you know, that peace that we have from that, no matter what happens to us, we can still have peace. Mm-hmm. And we can share that peace. And there's something powerful about that. You know, people in the world today are looking for this peace, probably in all the wrong places, you know. But as we experience it and they see it in us, there's opportunities for us to share it and be a blessing to that. And I think that's part of being a peacemaker, is sharing it with others. You know, sharing Jesus with others. You know, you think about it. When we share Jesus with others, I mean, I know all of us have heard stories of people that were maybe the worst of criminals that give their life to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing what happens in that person. And they actually turn a lot of people to Jesus afterward because of their testimony, because of their experience, you know. And that can happen, you know. And it's powerful. We each have a story. We each have an experience with Jesus, and we can share that with others. And it can change their lives. You never know what can happen through that. It says in the book, Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, there is no other ground of peace than this. The grace of Christ received into the heart subdues enmity. It allies strife and fills the soul with love. He who is at peace with God and his fellow men cannot be made miserable. Envy will not be in his heart. Evil surmisings will find no room there. Hatred cannot exist. The heart that is in harmony with God is a partaker of the peace of heaven and will diffuse its blessed influence on all around. The spirit of peace will rest like dew upon hearts weary and troubled with worldly strife. Isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. So, and then there's, you know, we can also pray for people and bring peace into their lives too. You know, the neighbors that are around us, a lot of times we might not know what's going on, but sometimes it's physically manifested. I mean, I've been in places where I've heard people yelling outside, you know. We can pray. And, you know, if we know of something that's going on in our neighbor's life or people around, you know, we can pray for them and ask, Lord, please bring peace into that person's life. And then let's go back to Matthew 5. The very last one that Jesus talks about here. And he actually, there's two blessings here, but I kind of group them together because it's kind of the same thing. You know, it says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And it says, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Wow. I don't know about you, but when I think about persecution, it doesn't sound like a wonderful thing. But, you know, the reality is that there are different responses to Jesus in the world today. You know, some people, and I remember meeting a guy, you know, when we were, a couple of years ago, when we were passing out, you know, flyers to come to our evangelistic meetings in Sterling. Well, you know, I was going to give him one, and he realized what it was, and he actually got kind of upset. You know, it's like, get off my property. You know, when I noticed he wasn't interested, I went, there was another guy there, and I just, you know, here's an invitation, you know, and he was starting to look into it, no, get off my property, you know. And it was like, whoa, you know. And not everybody, to everybody, Jesus is a wonderful thing, you know, and there's probably reasons for that, you know. People are where they're at for, you know, there's reasons why they come to that place, you know. At least that's what I think. I mean, people don't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to reject God. You know, it's probably because of things that have happened in their past, or maybe they've seen a wrong picture of God. But the reality is that for not everybody appreciates Jesus like we do. But there are people that do as well. You know, there are people out there that God is working with, and they're becoming more and more ripe, you know, to follow Him. And that's why I think part of the reason why we experience persecution, because, you know, we also have the enemy, and he's always, whenever we seek to follow Jesus, we have to expect that there's going to be more problems. I mean, I've seen it so many times, you know, with people that are, you know, they're trying to make that decision to give their life completely to God. And just things will start happening. Car accidents or difficulties in their life, you know, it's like, you know, because the devil is trying to say, no, I'm not letting go of you, you know, and there is that struggle. And we have to remember too, in Ephesians 6:12, it says that we are in a battle in this world. There's a real battle that's going on. And I think as we near the close of time, you know, when Jesus is coming, it's going to only get worse. You know, this battle, even now, is becoming more and more manifest all the time. And so we just have to expect that, you know, we'll probably be attacked more, and the enemy he doesn't give up easily, you know. He doesn't give up at all, really. But stay close to God. This is the ultimate of where God wants to bring us, to where we can actually look at persecution, and I don't know that I'm there, but and say, you know, this is a blessing. But we have to remember too that we're not alone in this. God is with us. And He is the one that brings about all this in our lives. It's not us really doing anything. It's us just allowing God to do it to us, you know, work through us. And He will do that. The more we grow closer to Him, remember the text that says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's no matter what we face, and sometimes it's overwhelming. God is with us. And as long as we stay close to Him, we really have nothing to worry about. We have so many experiences in the Bible. You know, we have David, we have Paul, we have that suffered a lot. You know, were running for their lives, you know, at times, and God delivered them. And He took care of them. I mean, the Psalms are full of David's experience, of raw experience that he was experiencing when he's running from Saul, you know, and later on running from his own son, you know. It's just, and God was with him. I'm sure sometimes he felt like, am I going to die? Is that it? You know? And God took care of him, you know. I'm going to close here with a story. The Japanese introduced a tree to the world that is called a bonsai tree. It is measured in inches instead of feet, as other trees are measured. It is not allowed to reach anywhere near its full growth potential, but instead grows in a stunted miniature form. The reason for it growing in a stunted form is that when it is first stuck its head out of the ground, as a sapling, the owner pulled it out of the soil and tied off its main taproot and some of its branches, feeder roots, and then replanted it. By doing this, its growing deliberately stunted its growth by limiting the root's ability to spread out and grow deep and take in enough of the soil's nutrients for normal growth. What was done to the bonsai tree by its owner is what Satan has purposed to do to the believer, if he can. He's going to try to tie off our taproot of prayer. He wants to limit our receiving in prayer what God supplies for our spiritual growth. So, Satan is trying to keep us away from Jesus. And that's what all the Beatitudes are really about. It's about drawing near. This is we all want to grow closer to Jesus. Every year we want to grow closer to Jesus. And we want to rely on him more and more. And so that is our main work, that relationship with him. And as we spend time with him, the more we behold him, the more we will see a beautiful picture of God. And the more God will change us, the more we will be able to, come to that point where we can look at persecution or whatever happens to us, the challenges and things that come to us as blessings, because it's all a part of God's plan of refining us, like the refiner's fire, and the refining gold. You put it over the heat, and it's that heat that refines us. It's not fun, it's not pretty, but it helps us become more like Jesus. So I continue to challenge you to spend more time with Jesus, get to know him every day. And, even amidst the busy world that we live in and all the things that go on, take that time every day, get to know him. And as we do that, God will greatly bless us. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this great sermon on the Mount at the beginning here as we've looked at it, the Beatitudes, the blessings, Lord, the ways to true happiness, Lord. The world promises another kind of happiness, not true happiness, a temporary happiness, a happiness that doesn't last, but your happiness will last, Lord. We know that these things here, Lord, will lead us to experiencing that happiness in heaven one day when you come again. We look forward to that day, Lord. And so I just pray you'll be with us, Lord, and in our daily experience with you and our whatever challenges that we face, Lord, you know them. You know our struggles, you know our frustrations, you know what we go through. And Lord, just give them to you today. Just pray that you would take them, Lord. Give us your peace. Give us the ability to, even in the midst of the storm, to hold on to you and trust you and have that patience with you, knowing that you're in control. Thank you so much, Lord. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Some of those bonsai trees trade for thousands and thousands of dollars. The older ones bring, I've heard, 6 figures, 7 figures.
Wow.
And they've got some provenance behind them, who had them and when they were kept, so, highly valued.
Yeah.